Series 12. Let's go full screen. All right. Tonight we're speaking on empowering our Black and Asian minority ethnic community. And just before I bring up our guests, I will go through some of the slides with us to kind of get everyone ready for what we're about to hear tonight. So the first thing I want to let you know and remind you of is that your choices determine your future. Because if you think about it, where you are today is the result of the choices you made before now. The things you're going through right now is a result of what you have done up until now. The same thing, what you'll experience in future will be a result of the decisions you're making today. So if you can just pay attention to that. And the next thing I want to tell you, part of ways that we will thrive and part of the ways that you'll get through whatever it is that's like a restriction to you right now. The first thing is to pay close attention to your mindset. It's Eleanor Roosevelt that said, no one can make you inferior without your consent. And this is one area that is so key, especially in the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic community. It's so prevalent. The way you think about yourself, the way you think about what goes on around you, the way you think other people are thinking about you, so key. Examine your mindset. Are you thinking inferior to others, or are you thinking superior to others? When it comes to language and your accent, what exactly? Because those sort of things, they're practical things that set limitations in our mindset that kind of affect the way we think. It affects the way we relate to other people. It affects the things that we want to do and that we think, oh, maybe it's not meant for me. Maybe I can't do that. What's your mindset? Is it of defeat or is it of victory? Is your mindset of success or is it of failure? Is your mindset of, well, those sort of things are not meant for me, they're meant for them? What is your mindset? So we need to pay close attention to our mindset. Is your mindset also that of lack or of plenty? We need to pay attention to our mindset. The second thing I want you to do is to give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to thrive. Give yourself the permission to succeed. Give yourself permission to be you. Give yourself permission to do well. You can do well. Give yourself permission to be who you've been created to be. Give yourself the permission. It's Proverbs 23 and 27 that says, as you think, so you are. As a man thinks, as a woman thinks, so she is. So that tells you, the only limit that you can place is actually the limit. That's the worst limit you can ever place, you can ever experience. The limit that you place on yourself is the worst kind of limit you can experience. Don't limit yourself. Give yourself the permission to thrive. Give yourself the permission to go further, to succeed, to do it. Just do it. The third thing is you must live purposefully. Remember, your life is not a waste, and you're not meant to just go casually through life. You have a purpose, that's the truth. And you have to live your life as one who has a purpose to fulfill. So, and that purpose will drive you. It'll drive you daily. It'll drive you monthly. It'll give you hope. It'll help you. It'll even help you have hope that can influence others. So live purposefully. Live purposefully. When you treat life casually, you become a casualty. You can do it. You can succeed. You can thrive. You can make it. You can excel. You can do well. But it begins with you. It begins with you believing in you. And when you believe in you, no one can stop you. When you believe in you, nothing can limit you. you can rise and you can go forth. People can place restrictions there, but once you believe that you can do it, you will find a way. You'll find a way, because you have much power on the inside of you. You're stronger than you think. You're stronger than you know. Just believe that you can. Believe that you can make it. Believe that you can do it. I'm so happy tonight that we're having Dr. Deba as our guest. She is the current Dean of Business at the University of Buckingham. It's such a delight. It's such a delight to have her on here tonight. She is such a woman who never looks down on anybody. She relates to people freely. We were speaking earlier. She was reminding me of the day that, the very first day that we met. And I was studying at the University of Buckingham. And at that point, I believe she was the deputy dean at the business school over there. And she walked up to me and said, and then, you know, she said something like, you know, "Are you Darren's mom?" You know, and I was thinking, okay, I'm not very sure how you would have been able to guess. And then we realized, you know, she told me about her son, my son, they were in the same class. And, you know, from that moment, she didn't even, some people would kind of create a barrier or class you in a certain way. No, she since that point, she has always, you know, related with me freely, like a friend, like a younger sister. She is just an amazing woman, and I'm so happy tonight to present to us Dr. Deba. I will quickly brush through her bio. I mean, this woman is amazing. Academically, she is just up there, you know, right from her BSc to her master's, distinction in master's, first, you know, in a bachelor's. She had a PhD. You know, I believe she's even one of the people who inspired me to go on to Cranfield, you know, to do my MSc at Cranfield. She got a PhD from Cranfield. I really, really love this woman, and she's a big influencer, and I'm so happy that she's here tonight to speak to us. She is the current dean of the business school, and before she was the dean, she was the deputy dean and academic director in the same school, overseeing all the academic provision and student experience. She was born in Kolkatta, India. She completed her undergraduate degree in physics, chemistry, and maths. Following her degree, she worked in sales and marketing for the Oberoi Group, which is an international luxury hotel chain. There's so much to say about her. Our areas of expertise are service management and cross-cultural management. She also supervises master's and PhD dissertations. She has held significant roles in program and curriculum management, both in undergraduate and postgraduate levels. She lives in Buckingham with her husband and 2 boys, and she devotes her time between her family and work. Her biggest joy is seeing students thrive in the face of adversity. I am glad tonight to welcome Dr. Deba BC to speak to us.
Thank you, Queen. That was a very eloquent and very, I'm very humbled. I'm a very simple person, but it's often nice to hear other people say nice things. So thank you very much for sharing that. Good evening. What I would like to share with you today is my personal journey and my personal meaning of what it means to empower the Black and minority ethnic community. You might ask why this topic? It came out of a conversation with Queen, actually. We were talking while I was walking in the football fields and my sons were playing, and we were talking about this session. And I said, what can we talk about that will really tell my story, but will be meaningful to your audience? Okay. And we just thought, I'm from a Black and minority ethnic background. People going to the church, quite a lot of them are from a Black and minority ethnic background. And I thought, I can't tell anybody else's story. I can only tell my story. And the only way I can tell my story is through that lens. And hence today, my presentation is around empowering the Black and minority ethnic community. And I look forward to an interesting discussion or questions towards the end. So I shall share my screen now. Queen, is that all right?
Yes, please go ahead.
Right. So empowering the Black and minority ethnic community. So the story goes to start off my journey. It's an explanation of who am I, okay? And I'd like my bio for the university where it says, I devote my time equally between being a family person and a work person, okay? So that all of us do that, okay? We try and divide the time. What we think we do equally, but is often not equal, okay? So who am I? In answering the question, I was thinking, who am I? And many thoughts came to my mind. I'm an Indian. I'm a teacher. I'm an employee. I'm a mother. I'm a colleague. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend. I'm a confidant. So the list is endless. We all have our individual different roles that we play in life. Okay, so there's no one block within which I can be shoved into. So the question is, why am I here? I am here because I passionately believe that the Black and minority ethnic community that we are branded as a group have a lot to offer, and our potential has just not been realized so far. Okay, and it goes back to what Queen was saying. A lot of it actually is in our minds. You know, as Queen said, the thing about accent, it's so fundamental, isn't it? You know, when you grow up in the Asian subcontinent and when you grow up in Africa, you are led to believe that somebody with a better English accent knows better. All right? Or you're led to believe that you know less. Okay? But none of this is true. You know as much as you know, they know as much as you know, and actually, after having lived here for 20 years and meeting several colleagues at the university, I don't believe that at all. And I'm here to explain that sometimes we place these limitations on ourselves, because in our mind, we have told ourselves that actually you are inferior or superior because your accent is better or different or worse. Okay, so often going back to Queen's point, it is us who set these limitations. And I'm here to talk about us questioning those assumptions that we hold in our brain, and I have no idea how I hold them, but I do. Okay, so the first step to empowerment is to understand what those are. So my personal life is with my husband and my 2 children, and my husband is from an European background. And I guess that has really taught me an understanding of different perspectives. And often as an Indian or a Black and minority ethnic person, I never understood that there were other ways of thinking. But in my house, I'm constantly surrounded by another way of thinking. But often the goal is the same. So for example, my husband and I might have different perspectives on how to bring the kids up. But the goal is the same, that the children must thrive. Correct? The end is the same, but the way we lead our personal and professional life means that we do things slightly differently. And that's okay. Okay? Now, in addition to my personal and professional life, my social life is equally important. I need to be surrounded by people and friends like Queen and other friends that are there for me and allow me to thrive. And actually, they allow me to empower myself. They empower me. Okay, and I will talk a little bit further down the slides on the role of empowerment by friends and the social circle, how important it is. But what does it mean in all my points? The most important takeaway is to understand that no matter who you are, it's always nice to meet people like you, but it's equally nice to meet people who are not like you but it is really important to accept people as they are. Okay, so that's my first takeaway. Please remember, to accept, to be empowered, to be part of the empowerment journey, you have to accept people as they are. Okay, and in as much as I'd like to find friends who are exactly like me or Queen and I like them, that limits yourself and your possibilities. Because I have seen, however hard it is and however I feel, oh, it's hurt my pride to understand that I've had to change, but I've only been able to do that when I've accepted that not everybody is like me. And not everybody should be like me. God has sent us all to this world with a unique purpose. And having people around you with the same purpose is actually quite uninteresting. Okay? So please remember to accept people as they are. So I thought we'll share about what does BAME mean. So before I came, and I'm sure a lot of you in the audience will understand this, when you come here from India or Africa or Jamaica, you come here as a Jamaican or a Nigerian or a Ghanaian, and then you come here and suddenly people's talking about BAME. I never saw myself as BAME, but now that I've heard it, my identity has become less Indian and more BAME. Okay, so I don't know whether you've understood what we describe by BAME. It's Black and minority ethnic, or essentially the international or the non-English population who are not inherently English. Okay, so why is it so important to acknowledge that? Is because opportunities might be different for people from a BAME background. Opportunities might be different even though they exist, because we are limiting ourselves to achieve those opportunities. For example, if there's a job that comes up, a student who's from a BAME community might feel that they can't apply. Okay, and it's my job as an educator to let them understand that anyone can apply for any job. Okay, but for me to be able to do that, I've had to empower myself to make that jump. Okay, because often it doesn't come naturally, at least for people that have not been brought up, I think, in the same country as me. So I was born and brought up in a country and I've come here, so I've had to adjust. Okay, but it's important to understand the differences. It's also important to understand, and for me it was quite revealing, that there are differences between people address us as a BAME community, but there's huge diversity in our community. Okay, so it's important to address that not all our expectations are the same. So the most important thing to remember in this, that the opportunities are different, and how and what can you do to make those opportunities work for you. Okay, life is not that, as Queen again said at the beginning, that you sit and the opportunities are all going to come your way. No, no, no. You can't be sitting and opportunities coming your way. We need to go and jump at those opportunities. But we can only get those opportunities if we invest in ourselves and make ourselves in a position so that that opportunity is the right for us. Okay, so in my discussion around diversity and the diversity amongst the BAME community, my own understanding is, have your own unique identity. Me as an Indian that has been born and brought up in India and have lived here in 20 years, has a different identity to Queen, who's been brought up in Nigeria and comes and lives here, or another British Asian person who's born and brought up here. We all have our unique identities. Okay, so have your own identity. Empowerment, what does it mean? We often hear people say, oh, the people are not empowered. Empowerment is the act of giving somebody more control over their own life or situation. Okay, who doesn't like control? But we feel more empowered when we truly believe we have that control. But I often disagree with people. People cannot empower you. You need to empower yourself. Okay, a lot of us, I think, in the past, perhaps I would wait for things to happen. Okay, You have to make things happen. You have to shatter that glass ceiling in your brain. You have to keep telling yourself that we can do it. And why can I not do it if they can do it? Okay, it's really important. And I know the way children are brought up in our African and Asian communities are very much comparing. He or she is doing it, why can't you? But remember that everyone is so unique that it doesn't have to be the same story that we are telling for everyone. Everyone can be on their unique individual journey and success story. Okay, so we need to measure performance differently for each individual person. So in empowering people, what do people need? People need to be given information. Okay, but often I realize that when I give people information, sometimes it might scare them because they're not ready for that jump. Okay, Queen again used this concept of mindset. It's in your mindset. So empowerment cannot happen if you're not in that correct mindset to be empowered. Okay, and in as much as we like to be empowered, we are therefore at that time must empower others. Because the more you empower others, the more you empower yourself. Okay, so ask yourself, if I want to give people information or training or the ability to make that decision for themselves, are they ready? Because not all people are ready at the same point in time. Again, you've got to appreciate that people are on different parts of the same journey, different stages. Okay, and give people opportunities. I've had so many students in the last 20 years of my teaching from Black and minority ethnic communities who've thrived under opportunities. Okay, so it's really important to give them opportunities and to explain and open their eyes about opportunities. Again, at the university, we have a really good careers advice called the Bright Network, which works with people from the BAME communities to help them achieve higher potential. It's really, really interesting work. So empowerment means a shift in mindset from being told to do something to wanting to do it themselves. Okay, so in education, it doesn't mean that I am telling X or Y or Z study. It's having that discussion and giving them the information and the opportunities so that they want to learn themselves. And the most important takeaway from this is to recognize that empowerment is a mind shift. Okay, from what will they do for me to what can I do for myself? How can I take control of my own life? Now, when Queen and I discussed this topic, another thing we talked about is that this shouldn't be like a lecture. It should be about my own personal story. Because if I share my own personal story, I hope it will resonate with many of you and you will understand what some of the context is, what some of the challenges are for people from a BAME community. And many of you, I'm sure, will understand the same issues that I faced. So growing up in India, I was expected to become an engineer because everyone in my family were engineers. Okay, so when that didn't happen, it was quite a difficult time for my parents. Not for me, because I never wanted to be an engineer anyway, but so much of an Indian community or indeed an African community is around what others or the community think of you. So it's a huge, it was a huge issue. So I then decided to stand up and say, I want to do something completely different. And I accept that that was when I was much older. And I had the courage to challenge those assumptions. And I broke the barriers because I decided to join a hotel industry, which was considered rather taboo in those days by my family, not by all families, but my families. And I can only speak of my family's expectations of me. Okay. It was hard and I stuck and I did it. And when I did it, I realized that the biggest block to that was nobody else but me. Because I was so worried what others would say that I had created this whole minefield in my mind about not making that jump. And I cannot tell you how free I felt when I made that decision. Okay, so it's really important sometimes to challenge those boundaries. And I did it respectfully, and I'm glad it worked. But coming from a context, even in an African context, I've never been to Africa. It's one of the places I'd love to go. But my students tell me such wonderful stories about family expectations, about family legacy. And often they're really good, but at other times they can be really tough on the children because the expectations are so high. Okay? But again, empowering the kids to make sense of that themselves and understand, why might a parent want their child to thrive? Why might a parent want their child to join their family business? It's really important to have those conversations and shape the journey of the student that I'm engaging with. So it's really, really important. Okay? Now, in the same way, my children have a different story. Because, and Queen and I were talking about this, that we're very fortunate that in the UK, in the school, they're allowed to challenge and they are taught to challenge and question. Where now in Africa and Asia, it is happening. But when I grew up many, many years ago, it was definitely not one of the most common things, right? Whereas our children are growing up with challenging assumptions, with asking questions. So it's important, and it takes time to make that mind shift, but it's important to do that. Yeah. So what we must remember is identify your own journey, because your own story, your own background, your own choices will be yours. My choices are different to Queen's choices. Queen's choices are different to Mary's choices. So it's important to appreciate that our own journeys and our own choices are important. And it's really, really spooky that Queen and I didn't talk about the slides she was going to do or I was going to do. But there's so many common themes in that, in terms of your choices, isn't it? The choices you make are your choices, and you make those choices. We are living off our past choices, and our future is determined by our current choices. So remember that as members of the Black and minority ethnic community, we have options, we have choices. Okay, and the choice is to succeed or the choice is to fail. And I hope the choice is always to try and to succeed. Okay. So in the context of education, which is my only lens here, my role is to help students make the right choice with decisions. My role is to motivate them, to help them want to learn, to make that mind shift change. My role is to encourage them to ask questions. Okay, because it's really, really important. I have many Nigerian students who I love dearly, who come to me and I say, why don't you ask questions in class? I said, but I was never told I could ask questions. I said, you can. But wouldn't you think that if I ask questions that I'm naughty or I'm not respecting my teacher? No. Your job to study at university is to ask questions and to accept that I may not have the answer to all your questions. That is also okay, because I'm not God. So I do not have the answer to all your questions, but I have to encourage you to ask those questions of others, of me, but also of yourself. Don't think that you can only ask questions of others. You must always ask questions of yourself. I also help my students to reframe their mind and help them understand that you will make mistakes. Okay, again, coming from a background where mistakes were not considered to be the best case scenario, it is something that is hard to accept, but it's important to understand that if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. Okay, so I often help my students to assess their own learning and say, mark it as if you were me. ask yourself, what would Deba say? And in doing that, I'm empowering them to ask themselves whether the decision they took, the information they collected was adequate. And finally, I help students understand that success only comes from making mistakes. But if you make a mistake, I don't have a problem. But if you make a mistake and don't learn, then there's a problem. Okay, so to help students reflect, and that's one of the things I really enjoy, to see a student, especially from a Black and minority ethnic background, you know, when it's really difficult, when it's very troubled, that they're able to be their own strongest critic and ask themselves those questions and learn from making the mistakes. I have a wonderful example of a young man who halfway through his degree program had failed most of his modules, and his parents were really, really upset, sad, and kind of told me, had a chat with me and said, this is their last opportunity. And I remember speaking to this young man, and we had a long, long heart to heart, and he studied, he came back and he finished his degree, and he went on to do a master's at a very reputable university. And even now, his father or his mother will ring me and say, we gave up on him, but you didn't. Okay? And I didn't because I believe that if I took him away from being controlled, in the sense that if I took him away from the mindset that I am studying for my parents to I'm doing it for me, he would want to. Who would want to waste their own life? He's not doing it for his parents. He's doing it for himself. So again, by helping them, by encouraging them, by helping them reframe their mindset, and by helping them reflect that it's okay you failed. What have you learned from it? It's not the failing that's the problem. It's not learning from it. That's the problem. So the most important thing is, as an educator, I consider my value add to that student's life as the most important thing in my job. Not the subject knowledge, not the theories that I'm telling them, but the value add I give to them to reframe their mindset, to reflect, and to help them make better choices. Okay? So the challenges that most students from Black and minority ethnic communities face, in my experience, again, others will have a different perspectives, is either the expectations are really unrealistic or the expectations are very low. Okay? And my job as an educator is to make sure that I'm able to give students back the control in and empathize with the situation they are in. Okay, and the three kinds of empathy that I would like to share with you quickly is, one is what we call cognitive empathy, which is, yes, you are going through an issue. I understand what your issue is. Then you have emotional empathy. You are going through an issue and you're crying and you're disappointed, and I am showing emotional support to you. It's very good to an extent, but if you're crying, as much as it's nice to have a friend sit and cry next to you, that's not going to help you. The final and most important thing is compassionate empathy, where you are able to provide guidance and support to your colleague or your friend or your student and help them steer them out of that position. Okay, so it's really important as an educator for me to empathize with each individual student's need and understand the cultural context they come from, to then be able to give them the tools and techniques to empower themselves. So it's really, really important to do that. So finally, what I've done is a little summary of the discussion. So empowerment in our BAME community is to thrive. And I can see Queen smiling, and I thought I would steer it along this discussion on what does it mean to empower, is to accept people as they are, to have your own identity, to recognize that empowerment is a mind shift, to identifying your own journey, which will be fundamentally different to others, to always value add in yours and others' life, and to empathize with others every single moment. Okay, so it's really, really important. So one of the things I forgot to tell you, which is if you see in the previous slide here, there is an icon at the end of every slide at the bottom. Okay, and in the final slide, I'm saying that if you empower yourself and also continue to empower others, you will actually grow from an acorn into an oak tree. Okay, so remember that something that small can blossom into something that big. Okay, and it's not difficult, it's little steps every day. So what does empower mean for you? You've got to think about this. For me, it means just making sure I give everyone the tools and techniques to ask the questions, the tools and techniques to make good choices, the tools and techniques to reflect on the choices. What little steps can I take to empower myself and others? And for me, I feel, and it's very cliched, that the more you empower others, the more you empower yourself. Okay? And my learnings are that it is never too late to start. It is always good to ask questions politely. And it is important to respect adults and young people. And why have I said young people? Because I work with young people. And very often young people, particularly from a BAME community and background, will tell me that, you know, our elders expect this of us. And I think I have learned the most from young people in my last 18 years or 20 years of education. And the more you respect them, the more respect to you. It has to be earned. It's really, really important. And that finally, empathy is everything. The ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, to understand what they're going through, and not just simply say, why is your decision different to mine, is really, really important. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed it. It was something that I thought I'll share with you. And it is something that is very personal to me. And I'd be open to all questions. Queen, back to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Deba. That was amazing. And what you did with the Thrive, I really love it. Good. I really, really love it. I must adopt that. That's good. So now we can ask questions. People, if you have questions, you either unmute yourself and ask straight away, or you type in the chat box, chat section, and we can take questions. Personally, Deba, can you tell us, please, how did you, because I'm a little bit curious. I want to know how you were able to progress. I know you're very hardworking. I know, once you start something, you put your mind to it and you achieve it. But I really want to know, did you aspire to being a dean?
No.
How did you, have you ever pictured it? How did you get there? I want to know.
I actually I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be a teacher either. Okay. Wow. So I studied at university, and when I was studying, I loved the academic aspect, I guess. And I love people. And I just thought I would love to teach. As I said, the more I taught, the more I loved teaching. And that's what it is. It becomes an addiction. It becomes, because the joy of seeing a student thrive is the biggest joy ever. I know at graduation, I clap and I'm very proud when my best students go there, but I'm even more proud if my students who came in not confident, scared, anxious, shy, not believing in themselves, when they finish their studies. Wow. Because that for me is what I feel I'm in education for. And I've met so many students from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds who come, they don't believe themselves. And we have to keep telling them, we believe in you. And often they will come and say, I've had students write to me saying, my father didn't believe in me. Why did you believe in me? And I have no answer, because I believe in everyone. Why shouldn't we? Everyone is equally important. Everyone can perform. And so I never aspired to be dean. I always aspired to do the best I can do. And I guess, and I've not, very in the recent past, things haven't gone my way. But instead of sitting around and moping about it, I made the right choice. I would say I empowered myself to to focus on my work. And actually people around you then take notice and say, actually, that is the right person. So I know it sounds really cliche, but I think just hard work, and for me, hard work is really, really important. I value somebody more for their hard work than for their intelligence. It's really important.
Wow, that's really good. Can you talk to us a little bit about, I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier, but that's just one of the, real life limitations we place on ourselves. And because I have experienced it many times as well. For someone who wasn't born here and you're expected to just express yourself, sometimes, there's that limitation of, I'm not even sure how to put the language together. I'll think about it a lot, maybe 100 times in my head first before it comes out. So just that limitation of, I'm not sure of the way this might sound. Am I speaking the English right? How were you able to overcome that supposed limitation of accent, of the language, so to speak?
I think, again, the barrier is yourself. I have wonderful colleagues who have never made me feel any different because of my accent. Okay, so I guess I'm very lucky in that my colleagues are that way. But I think equally, having the ability to smile at yourself is really important. So I often, and I'm going to say this very honestly, I often mix my V and my W pronunciation. So in my office, it's a standing joke that, in no speech can Deba say very well done, because it's really hard. Sometimes I say very well done, or sometimes it can be a mixture of things. But I know that about myself. And instead of saying, oh my God, I can't do that, I will smile about it and say, hey, that's one of my quirks. So again, accepting who I am and my limitations is really important, because the accent is not who you are.
True.
I don't know how to say it. I am who I am. The accent is just one superficial way of identifying me. True. So it's not the accent that is important, it's the thought that is important. And I think that's what you need to say. And often, if you don't have anything to say, you don't have to say anything. But I think we put these blocks on ourselves about our own accent, etc. I often marvel, even now when I listen to Radio 4 or so, I marvel at how beautifully they use English. And I often cannot use that beautifully. But I want to learn. And that's the other thing, perhaps, is things that I can't do well, I always want to learn from others. So I think those two things. But, there is no formula to it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Let's open it up to everyone. Now is your time to ask your questions. Please unmute yourself and let's ask.
Don't be shy.
Thank you, Dr. Deba.
No problem, Austin.
Yeah, thank you. That was very powerful. But my question to you is that when you were moving from India to the UK, were you mainly thinking about how you would integrate into the new environment, or were you thinking, I'm just going to accept that I am who I am and I'm going to be unique? Or were you thinking, I'm going to be thinking of how to integrate myself well into the society and lose that part of me that is quite unique? Do you understand my question?
No, maybe clarify it a bit more.
Okay, so because a lot of people, especially from our country, when they move from Nigeria, when they move to the UK, some people try to take this image of someone else and they lose themselves. So they're not really who they are.
I know
and
what you mean.
they lose that in the sense of trying to integrate into the society, and um, it kind of takes away some part of them because the world doesn't really see who they are because they're trying to be someone else. So
Yeah,
my
yeah.
question was, when you were moving from India to the UK, were you thinking like that? If you understand what I mean?
No, I absolutely wasn't, because I think I was so naive. I only wanted to come and study. So I was
Okay.
quite naive. In fact, you'll be impressed to know, Austin, that in my 1 year at university in masters, when I lived in Buckingham, I went to Milton Keynes once. That was the only time I left Buckingham because I always studied. So I think the fact is that I didn't come with any such purpose. I just came to study. In my head, that was the only thing I wanted to do. But I completely accept with you. Sometimes to integrate, people can move too much the other side. And sometimes for people to retain their culture or retain who they cannot integrate. Okay.
Mm.
Now, there is no right or wrong to this, because I think people are just individually different. And often I might think that I'm a very Indian person, but when I go to India now, 20 years of living here,
Mhm.
my Indian cousins think I've become too British, but people here think I'm still very Indian. Okay, so it's all about relativism, which means we're all who we are relative to something else. So you are in your mind evaluating or judging your other Nigerian countrymen or women based on who you think they should be. Okay, but I would say, as long as the person doesn't become an unkind soul, how does it matter whether they're more or less Indian, more or less Nigerian, as long as we are all doing good for each other? That's my most important thing. And often I also think that what might happen is people might get too tempted by what they feel is a new way of life. But again, as you go through life, Austin, I myself have found that the older I get, and there must be some wisdom to it, which I cannot share with you or I'm not aware of it yet. The older you get, the more you feel that pull towards your root. Okay? Which perhaps in your young days is not as powerful. Okay, so I don't know whether I've answered your question, Austin, but there are many ways people behave, and there is no right or wrong. As I said, people will just react in different ways.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Dr. Deba. I think, yeah, you answered my question quite well. Yeah, because like you said, it's relative to individuals.
Correct.
So, and that's absolutely grand. Also, at the end of the day, as long as the person is not unkind and they're still doing good for the society, then yeah, what? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
No problem, Austin. No problem.
Okay, we have a question in the chat box. How
Yeah.
how do we handle continuous failure in spite of hard work?
It's hard. It's not easy. I hear you, Anuradha. It's really important. That's where resilience comes in.
Mm.
That's where I think one of the things is to be really honest with yourself and be really honest and ask yourself, why did this failure happen? And if you are completely honest in yourself, I believe you will always find something that you can do better or you could have done better. Okay, so be honest with yourself. Also, it does help to get a mentor or coach or a friend that can help you through that. As I said, the social support is really important. So when you have failures, having a strong social or family support is so, so important. But also having a mentor or somebody to talk through it with you would help. But I would say, for me personally, it's all about the bigger picture. All these small failures cannot stop me from doing a good day's job. And I actually think if you work hard, so my only goal in life is to work hard. If that leads to something, it's great. If that doesn't lead to something, it's also fine. Because the only way I measure my performance is my hard work. The outcome is secondary. I know it sounds really bizarre, but the moment you work for outcomes, you disappoint yourselves, I think. But I'm not saying don't have goals, have goals. But don't let non-achievement of goals be considered as failure. If it's almost like you are taking a detour before you're getting back onto the motorway or getting to that main end point. Okay, but I think it's a hard thing, Anuradha, on handling failures. But I think it's talk to yourself and talk to others. This would be my advice.
Yeah, thank you, madam. And I've got one more question as well.
Yes.
How we can empower the children to read on their own instead of always saying them to keep reading, like how we can encourage them so that they can do on their own.
See, the problem is in today's world, there's so much social distraction and gadget distraction that reading has become a luxury. Yeah. When we were growing up, we didn't have all these luxuries, right? So we just had a book or we played out on the street. Simple. So I think one of the things that may be worth trying is to read with them and not expect them to read on their own. So often reading a fun story together, reading it to them, because I do remember when I was growing up and my grandmom would sit in the night and tell me stories, because I never grew up with my grandparents reading books to me, but I do remember them telling me stories. And another thing is really interesting is the art of storytelling in a culture, isn't it? And it's extremely effective in an African or an Asian context. Okay, the word, as you say, the storytelling from one generation to the other, the myths, the proverbs. So I think it's really important to read a book together, read it to your child. And once you start reading it and they get attached to that book, they will pick it up and read it themselves. I think often I've made the mistake of giving a book to my child and saying, read it. But then when I've sat and read with him, it becomes a family activity, doesn't it? Yes, it's more indulgent of your time, but I think that's one way they will remember you. Oh, we used to read books together. Or, you know, when I read this with so-and-so. So try that, Anuradha. I hope it works. And also choose in books that they will want to read rather than you want them to read. Because I always made the mistakes of choosing Enid Blyton for my kids because I'd grown up with that. They hated it. So then I had to get myself to, again, empower myself to understand that I'm pushing them to do something they don't want to do. Okay, what do you want to do? We want to read this. All right, I'll read it with you. Okay, so try that. Maybe that will work.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question.
Yeah, from
Please,
Temi.
as a young academic, this is Temi Tokwe Takpo asking, as a young academic.
I got excited there. I thought she called me a young academic, but now I realize she isn't.
How can I grow my passion in teaching? Could you recommend books or videos that could help motivate me to become more excellent at teaching? Okay, so I think books and videos, if I would say watch some TED Talks that talk about teaching. TED Talks I find are really, really helpful. One of the most important articles that I read, which really set the tone for my life, was about Pygmalion in management. Okay, the story, I don't know whether you've heard it, but the story is that about the Pygmalion effect. That's right. All right. Yeah. And it is about people will behave as you expect them to behave. Okay, so if I go into a class
and I decide these students are looking like the A type and those are the ones that I think are not going to do well, then they will behave like that, and you will mark them that way. But Pygmalion is the way you expect them to behave, they will behave. So I will go in and say, everyone deserves a distinction, prove me wrong, right? So everyone needs to believe that you expect big things of them. And so, as I said, it's all about setting your expectations of the students. Okay, but Temi, it's really important that students understand that you're setting high expectations of them, not low expectations, but high expectations. And that doesn't mean that it's a distinction for everyone. It's the best that they can do for themselves. Okay, and if that person is capable of a 2-2 and gets a 2-2, that they're meeting their high expectations. Okay, so I would say, watch TED Talks, read Pygmalion about self-fulfilling prophecy or the Pygmalion effect. It's really, really powerful. And yeah, I'd be happy to chat with you anytime. It's not a problem.
Thank you so much, Ma. I'm grateful. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Fantastic. Do we have any more questions?
Am I allowed to ask one more question, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Deba. It was like very revealing and informative.
Good.
I've got like one more question. If a child like from BAME community and an English speaking person does the same mistake in the class, the approach of the teachers to that situation will be different. So how we can approach the teacher regarding this, how we can make our child understand the situation.
So you mean that the same mistake is being the same mistake is being done by two children, one
Yeah.
from a BAME community, one from an English community, and the teacher is dealing with it differently.
Yes.
Okay. Often, I am the kind of person, and Queen will completely agree with me, I always give the other person the benefit of the doubt first. Okay, because otherwise, I think it can be very hard. It can be a hard life. I think the teacher may not even realize that they're doing it differently. Because, as you say, it's these unconscious biases that people have. Unfortunately, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I would say, have a very open and honest conversation with the teacher. And I often say to my students, it's not about what the teacher does, it's about how they make you feel. That's really important. Okay, so if this child is feeling hurt, if this child is feeling that it's unfair, then instead of going to the teacher and saying, why is this happening? All you have to say is, my child is feeling like this. Can you help?
Okay.
This would be my first thing, because as Maya Angelou said, it's not about how you, it's about how you make people feel. That is the most important.
Okay.
Okay, so try that. I think that might help.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
I think we can take one more question before we go on to the announcements for tonight.
I have a question, but before I ask, I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing tonight. I don't know if you can hear me.
I
Yes, yes,
can.
we
Thank
hear
you.
Oh, awesome. Let me move because
And here's
the little
Toby,
one is
background.
having fun. Here we go. Right. So I just wanted to ask a quick question, not to take up too much time. I currently work in an organization where I would say I'm the only African there. So we've got British people, we've got Irish, we've got Scottish, we've got everybody. Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes it's just a little bit, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but yeah. But sometimes it's just a little bit like, okay, so my question is, how have you sort of progressed through your career in the midst of not being around people you feel would understand your little nuances, if I can use that word?
Yes, yes, I have loads of them, Maxwell. You're absolutely right. I think, I don't know, I think academia that way quite, I mean, maybe people disagree, but for me, Buckingham has such an international community. I'm so privileged and humbled to be at a university where multinational and multicultural aspects are normal. So I feel that. But you're right. It often can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would say is I think it's, again, we tend to think of it. We tend to put that impression on our minds. Nobody else is thinking about it.
True.
They're not sitting and thinking, hey, oh, there's the only Nigerian or African guy in the office. I promise you they're not. But we think that they might be thinking that, I think, most of the time.
True.
But it's often getting over that hurdle, isn't it? And it's almost like we built this bubble around us. And we have to just bust that bubble a little bit to say, actually, it's okay. I don't know whether you have this, but when we were children and we had this huge secret that we didn't want anyone to know. But even if you hadn't told anyone, but you had that, you thought everybody knew.
True.
So often, I think it's similar to that. And I think, as I just say, I would just breathe deeply, just enjoy the moment, and just know that unless people are being unkind, no one else is thinking that.
True. Okay. No, they're really good. They're really good. And I think maybe that adds a little bit to the overwhelming part, which is everyone's just really nice. And yeah.
And you're waiting to think, when is this not going to be nice? But have faith, it often is nice.
Yes.
I always believe in the positive. I always believe in the positive.
True.
Yeah, I believe so too. I think that's very key. Your mindset always comes through the way you relate to people.
Yeah, I often tell my husband, I can live anywhere in the world. Because I have that, I do enjoy getting to know people. I knew no African before I came to the UK. And I'm so privileged that I have so many wonderful African alumni, so many wonderful Pakistani alumni, so many wonderful Malaysian alumni. I wouldn't have met them sitting in India, but I'm privileged that I know them now, and I understand them, I understand their background, I understand their contexts. And so I enjoy it.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, that's nice. Okay, I think at this point we can round off. If you still have questions, though, you can still type it to me. Send it to me on WhatsApp or send it to me by email. We can still get answers to our questions. But I think we can round it off here for tonight. So I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Deba. Thank you so much for coming on tonight, for speaking to us. I believe everyone has been able to pick out not just one thing, but a number of things that is eye-opening to you. Now you know what empowerment is. Now you know that you can be better than you have been before. And I love what she did with the thrive. I think I made a note of it. I'm going to just read it out to us. The T is to accept others as they are. The H is have your own identity. The R is to recognize that empowerment is a mind shift. The I is identify your own journey and your choices. The V is value add in yours and others' lives. And then the E, the last E, excuse me, the last E is empathy. I think I'm going to just put that in a frame. I'm going to publish it, so be on the lookout for that. So everyone, I'd just like you to join me. Let's appreciate Dr. Deba. You can put your hands together and you can type thank you. Thank you in the chat box. That's fine as well. Thank you so much. It's been a lovely, lovely time with you tonight.
You're
Deba,
most
thank you
welcome.
so much.
Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank
Bye.
you. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to share with us some announcements that we have. So please stay tuned and stay with me as I go on and share that. We've gone through question and answers. All right, just to let you know, if you need to watch either this episode or the previous episodes, you can do that on the YouTube channel. It's called The Queen Great. You can just type in the Queen Great Thrive keys. You see the various ones we've had in the past there. So remember to like, share, subscribe. This is our I Thrive community. And I thank you, every single one of you who have been with us right from the beginning. And even if, you know, I think everyone on the call tonight, you have been here more than once. And I really thank you for coming back every week to, you know, strengthen this community. I'm so glad. I'm always so glad to have you here. We'll be having future events. So please, I encourage you to get involved, and you as well, stay tuned. I was so encouraged last week when someone contacted me when we finished the meeting and said, I would really like to be part of the book club. That was very exciting. And then someone else said to me, I want to really be part of the exhibition. That is so encouraging. So please, let's get involved and also stay tuned. Our speaker next week is Keisha. Keisha is my friend. She's based in America with her family. She'll be sharing she has such an amazing story and she's been on an amazing journey. She'll be sharing with us. So please, please, please look out for the invite and please ensure that you're there. All right. Part of empowerment, remember what Dr. Deba said to us earlier. Empowerment is helping other people see that they can actually do it. So not that you are doing it for them, but that they can do it. So for every entrepreneur on this platform, or if you know someone who should actually showcase their product or service, please spread the word. We have an online exhibition on the 15th of October. If you haven't registered, remember, you can even register straight after this meeting. Just register, send an email to ithrive@queengreat.com. We'll send you out the info, what you need to get ready and how you need to do it. And then we can take it further from there. So this is one of the Thrive Empowerment projects we'll be having very soon in a few weeks, 15th of October. It's a virtual, it's an online exhibition. Please bear that in mind. If you haven't sent in your video yet, please do send us, tell us what your highlight has been during all the various Thrive Keys series we've had. Just tell us what you remember, tell us what you're applying, tell us what has been your highlights, the guests, what they spoke on. Send in that video of yourself. Also, watch out for I Thrive podcast. This is coming very soon. We've done the recording. We're going through the editing. So please be on the lookout for that. I Thrive podcast, we'll be sending out information about it, which will require you to join us. There's a 7-day podcast. You're just required to join us at a certain time early in the morning for 5 to 10 minutes every single day for 7 days. But more information will come our way soon. All right, special thanks to everyone who has got the t-shirt. It looks good on them so far. Okay, at this point, I would like us, because we usually do this every week, I'd like us to read out this Thrive verse. And our Thrive verse today is taken from Job chapter 22 and verse 8. And, you know, I love it because it goes so well with what we've spoken today, or what's been shared with us today. So it says, the land belongs to the powerful and the privileged thrive in it. Isn't that amazing? Mm. So this land, or wherever you are in the world, whether you're in the UK, you're in America, you're in Nigeria, you're in India, you're anywhere at all in the world, the land always belongs to the powerful, and everyone who's privileged thrive in it. And as we've heard tonight, It's about your mindset. How are you thinking about yourself? So how I'll need you to read this is, this land belongs to the powerful, and I am privileged, so I will thrive in it. Do we understand?
Yes.
I'll say it one more time, and I'll need you to unmute yourself and then speak it out. So it says, here's what I need you to say. This land belongs to the powerful, and because I am privileged, I will thrive in it. All right, let's say it together now. This land belongs to the powerful, and because I am privileged, I will thrive in it. All right, let's say it one more time. This land belongs to the powerful,